Randall Goosby, it's great to see you.
You too, Fred.
You know, former PT Young Artist in residence, and your career has just taken off since then. I wish we could take credit.
You guys can take a little bit.
A little bit. But you got so many things going for you on so many levels. And I was just taking a look at your schedule. You've been touring the world. You did a tour with the Rotterdam Philharmonic in Europe. You've played with, I don't even know how many American orchestras this past season. And now suddenly, 7 weeks in Marlboro.
Yeah.
What's that like for you coming to Marlboro Music?
Well, there's a very specific reason I came here, and that's because I get to play chamber music for 7 weeks. Chamber music is a big part of why I fell in love with music and decided to go forward with it as a career in the first place. And that was way back in my days at the Perlman Music Program on Shelter Island, and chamber music was a major discovery for me there. That was my first exposure to it, and since then, the sorts of things that you keep in mind and think about and try to hone through chamber music have remained essential to even the solo work that I do. And so, as you said, the schedule's been getting busier and busier, and the number of concerti certainly isn't going down. And so it doesn't necessarily leave too much time during the season for chamber music, especially for chamber music with different ensembles and different musicians and collaborators than I would otherwise have a chance to be around. So this was a golden opportunity, and it's sort of my last hurrah in terms of being a sort of young artist participant at summer festivals. So it's a bit of a bittersweet summer, but it's been an absolute joy to be here. It's been a really productive time, and reconnecting with old friends and connecting with new friends, and looking forward to just seeing where these sorts of relationships go.
So it's the relationships, it's some network building, but you were also talking about some of these fine points that chamber music gets at.
Yes.
That you just don't get from playing even with the great orchestras in the world. So what is it about these small ensemble settings that tunes you up in a way?
Well, actually, with the really great orchestras, you do get it. You do get it. Because I think that all music is chamber music. Even unaccompanied music is chamber music. You're playing
in what way?
In the sense that nothing in your individual part is absolute. Nothing in the way that I see it should be that predetermined. I like to leave things up to spontaneity and to the act of responding to something that someone else has initiated, or vice versa. And that's what makes it fun. That's one of the wonderful things about having 7 weeks. Some pieces get worked on for 7 weeks here. Other pieces get worked on for 2 weeks, and you say, okay, guys, I think we're ready to go. Let's bring it to the stage. And having that amount of time to try out different combinations of things, different possibilities as far as sound, quality and texture, color, timing, rubato, all of these things. I love having the opportunity to try them all out. And at the end, when it comes time to perform, you're kind of just like, all right, well, we know what we can do. Let's see what happens on stage, right? And so it's less of what you might get with Orchestra X and Conductor Y, where it's like, okay, what do you do in this measure? What should I look out for? What kinds of timings? What kind of color? What dynamic do you want to do here? Whereas with chamber music, when it's such a small ensemble and you're not relying on a conductor to lead 80 musicians behind you, you have a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more wiggle room in terms of, okay, what if I do this way this time? Let's see how people respond to that. And I think that's the magic of chamber music. And as I mentioned, with really fine orchestras, and of course certain repertoire allows you to sort of live in that chamber music mode a little bit more, something like Mendelssohn Concerto or Mozart Concerto, where you do something a little differently, and what you do next sort of depends on what the response is from the orchestra.
And vice versa.
And vice versa, exactly.
And I hear you describing it in a way that makes it sound like a conversation.
Absolutely.
Like the give and take of the music, even though all the notes are written down and the notes haven't changed for 200 plus years,
Right.
Maybe, in some cases anyway.
Some cases.
But the conversation you make with it is always different.
Absolutely.
Depending on who it is, depending on the moment, depending on how you feel in the moment. It's always a new conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what makes it exciting. As you said, these notes they've been printed and reprinted for a couple hundred years by now. And the best of this music and these composers stays relevant. That's why we still play it, right? But how? Why is it relevant? And I think music can be relevant to a particular day. It can be relevant to what you're feeling in that given minute when you're playing the music. And I think that's something that we as artists aren't always, we're not always made comfortable to be able to do that, to submit to the moment. What does that piano mean in this moment? How much a cello rondo are we going to give to this bar in this moment today? Because it's different. It's different every time. I mean, it's such a corny saying, you know, no two performances are the same. But really, even if you wanted them to be,
They
it
couldn't
would be really difficult. So I think
Yeah.
it's a little bit more comforting to buy into and lean into the fact that, okay, this is how it's gonna be today. Let's find out what that is. And so that's one of the great gifts of being here and being able to spend so much quality time in the rehearsal studio and also outside with all of these incredible musical minds.
Yeah. Randall, I know from our previous conversations and from your social media
Mhm.
that not only are you obsessed with music, but you're obsessed with golf. Now, people come to Vermont for all kinds of reasons. They come for the maple syrup, they come for the cheese, they come for the fall colors. I don't hear a lot of people saying they come to Vermont to golf. So, how do you find places
Mm.
even to get out your clubs and take a few swings while you're here?
I find places the same way I do during the year. I take my clubs and assume there's going to be a place nearby. I hit the ground and, you know, surf Google for anywhere from 5 to who knows how long to find the courses. Fortunately, there's one not far away from campus. So I've got a car here for the summer, and in whatever, you know, off time, including today, which happens to be a day off, I'll get out to the course and at the very least hit some balls, chip and putt a little bit. If I have 4 or 5 hours free, then I'll go and play around. But yeah, it serves the same purpose that it does during the year, which is that it's really quite a nice escape from the intensity of the work that we do, especially here at Marlboro, where we suddenly have the time. It's some people sort of ease back with that time and say, okay, we got time, guys. You know, let's relax, let's let the music marinate or organically. And sometimes it's like, all right, we have so much time, let's dive in. Like, let's really get into the nitty gritty as soon as we can and iron all of these little details out. But golf offers an opportunity to just get out, take my push cart, walk, you know, for a few hours and breathe in some of the fresh air of the Vermont hills. And yeah, get to work on my game a little bit.
So, on one level, it's an escape
Yeah.
from the intensity of the music making, the rehearsing that is Marlboro, and that is much of your life.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a similarity too. There's always something you're working on. There's
Mhm.
always something you're refining in your swing.
Yeah,
There's always something you're refining in your playing.
absolutely.
So there's a parallel there too.
Certainly, yeah. I think in almost exactly the same way as I was talking about chamber music and the nuances of being spontaneous and being open to the challenges or to the triumphs of that one day, golf is very much the same. You know, one day you might feel something in your swing and it feels great. The next day you might go back and try the same thing and you can't make contact with the ball. It's a magically frustrating thing. But having the ability to, you know, take a step outside of yourself and say, okay, you know what, I can only control so much of what's going on in the golf game today. You know, let me control what I can control and just be fine with whatever else happens. I think from a sort of performance psychology standpoint, it's got a lot of parallels as well. In that, say for example, you're playing a concerto and you have a memory slip. The shorter your memory is in that moment, as far as forgetting that just happened,
Mm.
and being able to step right into the next moment or the next bar or the next beat with full confidence and conviction, like that just wasn't a thing, the greater your chances are of being able to kind of get back into your stride and continue to yeah, be open to the possibilities of that performance rather than thinking, okay, I've got to make up for that mistake. Everything's going to be perfect from here on out. It's the same thing with the golf swing. I mean, if you take one bad swing and you step up to the next shot and you're thinking about that bad swing you just took, what are the chances you hit, you know, the shot of your life? Pretty low. But if you hit a bad one and you're like, that's pretty bad, then you walk it off, you know, walk to the next ball and you're like, all right, well, let's do the same thing a little bit differently and see what happens rather than saying, okay, I'm going to hit this shot. I think they bleed into one another. And especially when I have a bad round of golf, I can come back, pick up the violin and say, oh my gosh, this feels so easy.
And they both have the combination of the physical skills you have to master and the mental game.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
that combination too. I noticed just looking at your social media, when you are taking a swing, you're a lefty.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
So you
Left-handed.
golf left-handed.
Right.
Okay, this might be a weird question, but I have to ask. So most people play golf right-handed,
Yes.
and most golf clubs are right-handed.
Yeah.
So like I'm a natural lefty,
Mhm.
but when I go to rent a set of clubs, they're all right-handed. So I learned to golf right-handed.
I see.
But so you golf lefty, but you play the violin righty.
Mm.
Was there ever a moment when you were like, wouldn't it be better for me if I played this way, if I played the violin lefty?
No. Yeah, I'm left-handed naturally. I write left-handed. If I open a door, I'm doing it with my left hand. I'm a real true lefty. Um, and so for a long time, and still, depending on how my practice goes on any given day, sometimes I feel like that's actually a disadvantage, because whatever tiny advantage I may have in terms of dexterity with the left hand, just given that it's my dominant hand, I feel like the right hand is, and more as I age, I feel that the right hand is really where the magic happens.
The bow.
Right? You can control where the pitch is with the left hand. To some degree, you can determine the sound quality based on, the angle at which you put your finger down. Vibrato obviously is an incredibly variable tool in terms of adding color and different qualities to the sound, but none of that actually makes any sound without the bow. And so oftentimes I catch myself thinking, man, why couldn't I just have been right-handed so I could make all these little colors and nuances happen in the right hand? Because that is becoming more and more exciting for me every time I pick up the violin. Every time I go in for a sort of checkup lesson with old teachers, I'm asking less and less about, okay, how do I hit this shift, or how do I execute this kind of vibrato? And it's more like, what do you think about if I play this note on this side of the string rather than this side of the string, or this part of the bow, or this angle of the hair? I think there's so many more possibilities that are available to us with the right hand. And so it takes me a little bit of extra time and maybe some extra effort to kind of, floss out all of those different possibilities. But there's never been anything that has inspired me to try and switch the setup. It's difficult enough the way that I know how to do it.
Yeah, right.
So if I were to flip it, I don't know. But nobody told me that just because I'm left-handed, I didn't have to golf left-handed.
Ah.
I don't know why. I mean, I went up to the pro shop the first time I took a rental set of clubs, and I said, hey, I'm a lefty. So they gave me a left-handed set of clubs. But yeah, it's too late now. Only time I'll swing righty is if I'm up against a tree and I don't have a swing.
Yeah, right.
And
right,
that's
right.
about
So you're
a 50-50.
locked in on the golf as a lefty and on the violin as a righty.
Correct.
Randall, what are you looking forward to this coming season?
Lots of things. I'm going on my first, I believe this will be my first US tour with a European orchestra. I guess technically not European, UK orchestra. It'll be a rather short tour, I think 3 or 4 cities, with the London Philharmonic, doing the Barber Concerto. That's sort of my big concerto for the fall, at least. And it's one that I think the last time I performed, actually, I don't even know if I ever performed it. These might be my first performances of the Barber Concerto. But I learned it with Mr. Perlman back when I might even have been pre-college. It might have been before undergrad. So I have been sort of revisiting and rediscovering the piece in the context of, just knowing that I'm going to be playing it with orchestras in a couple of months. It's always an interesting experience looking back at old music, where you've put markings and fingerings and reminders in the music from your 16-year-old brain. So I'll look back at it, and some places I'll be like, you know what? I was onto something here. And then other places I'll be like, what was I thinking? Why didn't my teachers tell me not to do this? But in the moment, bodies change and preferences change, and different things are comfortable in different ways at different times of your life. So it's been really cool to look back and see the change and the shift in my perspective around the piece, approaching it both physically and also musically. So it's less about the technical precision and clarity of each individual note, as much as that is important. And it's more about the effect of what it is that you're trying to say through the music.
Feeling.
Exactly.
of what
The
you're
feeling, the emotion that you want to feel, first of all, in yourself, but that's only just a prerequisite to what you want the audience to feel. That was one of the biggest and most lasting lessons I got from Mr. Perlman. He was like, if you don't feel it, how do you expect the audience to feel it? And so I'm trying to figure out how to feel it more deeply and more honestly the more that I play.
Randall Goosby, always a pleasure.
Good to see you, Fred.
Thank you so
Thanks for
much.
having me back. Pleasure.